Sosanim, thank you for allowing me to ask you some questions for your Taekwondo students and for anyone else that would benefit from listening to your instruction. Today is our first interview, Grandmaster, and today I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity and for your students so that we can review and study what you instruct us in this series of interviews. For today's interview, I would like the focus to be on some questions about training for your students and to ask you about your personal background and some of the training that you have done since you started Taekwondo through now when you are a Grandmaster of Taekwondo. I'd also like to ask you a little bit about the roles and relationships of the student and the master, and perhaps end with some questions about virtues of a warrior, today's warrior, Sosanim, and your philosophy with respect thereto. Would that be okay?
That would be great.
Okay. The first question I'd like to ask you, Grandmaster, is when students are training in Taekwondo outside of the dojang, is strict training with Taekwondo enough? Is it sufficient by itself? Or do you like to see students cross-training in other areas? And if your answer would vary depending on whether that student is a beginning student or an advanced student, I would like you to share that information.
I always encourage the student to train other type of martial art after they reach certain sufficient time in the art they are training. For example, in the past, I encouraged 4th degree black belt. I said, once you get a 4th degree black belt, for example, you can take a break from Taekwondo and you can experience other type of martial art. Something you always wanted to do or you were curious about, such as judo, aikido, karate, whatever. I am against the idea that you are a novice in the martial art. You started like red belt or white belt, or even you are 1st degree black belt. Then you choose to do simultaneously another form of training, like kickboxing or sword training. Not only they contradict with each other, it's kind of like confusing. It also shows lack of focus and dedication to one style and one master. If you would give yourself a time to as a black belt, train, let's say Taekwondo as you are a black belt, then after a black belt say, you know what, I kind of like, it's not for me this art. I mean, I have too much bruises, I have too much injury, which we don't do that in our training. It's better for me to do and learn Tai Chi, because I have bone issues. Because I am a person, I don't like a motion who they are sudden and abrupt or jumping. I like to work on my breathing, on the qigong, whatever it is. Then it is understandable. But for a student to come back to train Taekwondo and the same time go, the second day go to learn judo, and the same time go and learn karate and jiu-jitsu, it's kind of like confusing. So I can't follow a track with that student. He'll come back here, his style is confused, and I can see that he's really dedicated to that art for a while. But when students are 3rd degree black belt and up, and they're gonna take a break from the training, that's fine, they can go and experience other art. Another part of my answer is, in our Taekwondo training, we have a lot of gap we fill. We teach our student the grounded training. It doesn't mean if we teach someone the grounded training that we are influenced by the recent wave of jiu-jitsu or mixed martial art. We're not. If you can investigate our record years and years ago, even before those martial arts appeared to the arena, in the late 70s or even beginning of the 70s, we always taught defense on the floor. We always taught how to deal with someone on your top. We always taught how you use weapon, how you work with knife, and so forth, so forth. But I am with the idea that cross-training is important for the student. I will call it cross-training. Since Taekwondo is a competitive art, it is important to experience certain aspect of exercising. For example, plyometric. Huh?
Yes.
Plyometric exercise will help the student into explosiveness of the technique. It gives the student the strength of the motion. It might build its agility and his and her cardiovascular conditioning. That's important. Endurance training is important too. Weightlifting, light weightlifting training. I'm against the idea weightlifting too much bulky, because then your muscle because you need that strength, you need that muscle, and so on, so on, so on, so on. Swimming is great because it builds your cardiovascular and so forth and so forth. So cross training is important as long as it fit in helping the athlete and or the student to improve the art they are studying. That's the only answer I could have for that question right now.
Let me ask you just a little bit of follow-up on that. You answered that very completely. I'm going to mention a few other activities that might be considered cross-training. I'd like your impression. You already mentioned plyometrics, which is one of them. Yoga, qigong, running, mountain climbing, meditation.
In our school, yoga is something I recommend highly, but it's not going to improve into the student except maybe, I doubt the flexibility issue too is going to move flexibility. It might improve certain flexibility, but it must be internally. It will improve the student internally. It helps them more relaxation, but it's not going to contradict with their martial art training. Meaning, if tomorrow my student tell me, well, I'm training yoga in that school, it's fine, it's great. Because here in our school, once in a while we pass on some yoga exercises. You know, some of the black belt know, you know, once per month I give them 2 or 3 yoga exercise and work it out when your body is hot, so it can calm you down. It's a great exercise, the yoga. It helps you to get in touch with your body. It helps you to slow you down mentally. It helps you flexibility. It works on your breathing. And in yoga, there is the principle of the qigong. Because the qigong, like we said, you know, coming to that, it's Chinese. While in the Hinduism, they call it nadi. Nadi meaning the internal power, the internal strength, which we develop it through breathing exercise and mental visualization and through special slow motion training based on a philosophy that the energy is all around us, but sometimes it can stop because of disease, because of our mental attitude, or because we don't eat right. In our Taekwondo class yesterday, you were here, we passed 3 breathing exercises. I don't call them Qigong, I call them Danjun training. In Korea, we call them breathing Danjun training. But if you want to study the Qigong completely as a science, as an art, and as a martial art, the whole aspect, which is the Tai Chi kind, like format, you can study it properly with a Seifu, Seifu meaning a master who is well trained, study it, the physical part of it, and the breathing part of it, but it's not something I would like to see you doing in coming to a Taekwondo.
Yes.
Because you're going to build a 2 different set of body language and is a body movement. You know, that's why certain art is good for us outside the Taekwondo training. But when you're going to mix it with Taekwondo training, no, you can practice the breathing, which we have it in class.
Yes.
And some other styles, they have it in maybe in a different way, in this style, different way. Those are okay. But the physicality of the technique is something I personally, I don't feel comfort with.
Yes. So you don't do white crane
No.
Qigong, you can do the breathing,
You can do
or the medical.
yeah,
and
the
that?
mental, yeah. But go ahead and do what another master stand on one foot and tiger, you know, a form of kung fu. So qi kung, qi gong, qi is the inner energy, the way of the energy. I personally prefer the student to do it, if they're gonna do it the whole way, to do it completely, to benefit from it as well, away from the Taekwondo.
Thank you. Turning now to your personal training, I'm going to ask you some personal questions, if that's okay.
I can answer, yeah.
I want you to think back to when, a long time ago, when you were just a Taekwondo student.
But myself, when I started to train formally, the training was hard, rough. We can't accept less than screen. Your uniform should be squeezed with sweat after every training. We did not have the comfort we have right now, like the $5,000 mat, nice heavy bag. I use the pine tree to kick them, honestly, and with respect to nature, of course. I use the nature and its element to train. This is my Baptist. Baptist is nature. The nature is where I get free, where I learn with the element. And there were no restriction on training. Cold, hot, ice, up mountain, down mountain. Until now, even when I go to Lebanon and I have some special personal student I train with, and I think one of my students, Lauren, one time went to Lebanon with me, and she knew where we went and trained. We went down in the valley with another black belt there and another black belt there, and we enjoy the heart and the grueling of the training. This is called the traditional way of practicing martial art. Lack of comfort teach us self-discipline, teach you really to endure, teach you away from luxury, and it builds really a good spirit and a good attitude about the training.
In the present, when you are outside of class and you are not teaching us, what training do you do on your own, Grandmaster?
Basically, everything I tell you about here, I do it. Like I look on myself, you know, especially as you age, you start see things is lacking in you. You start see your mental ability is just, you're dealing with age, you're dealing with the concept of life and death, you're dealing with concept that you no longer have the things you had when you were younger. Then you will feel that type of time is short and you want to do the best, right? You have people you want to teach, you have an art you want to preserve, and also yourself, you want to see your technique, despite your limitation, is still good. So I basically do run, I run. When my back is allowing me, I go uphill, downhill running. I still do nature training. I go to parks here, places like where there is boonies. I do my form. I practice my form on a rugged areas, like I practice my form going uphill, going downhill. I do my kick, like I go to let's say a park, and I go from zone A to zone B, let's say 200 yards. I'm gonna do kicks from that zone to that zone, doing variety of kick. I do, you know, all, then I do push up, I do sit up, I meditate, I sit down and meditate, and I vary my training, you know. Every time I do on form, sometimes do on kicking, sometimes do on stretching, and sometimes I do technique which I'm gonna teach in the class. So when I practice it myself, I wanna make sure as much as possible to let the student see it the best way they can do it. And this is what I do, kind of like it's a whole life, you know, the training. It evolved around my work, you know.
Turning to the student, in your opinion, what is the most important benefit a Taekwondo student will achieve, let's say, in the first, from white belt to black belt? What should we achieve in our training? What do you look for as a virtue?
Well, it depends on the student age. If it's a kid, it depends on student age. and it depends on the student health condition. That said, if in the children category, if the children is special aid kid, the Taekwondo training properly designed for that type of group can help the student, let's say, focus, build self-esteem, give balance, help in concentration, strengths. And in fact, it might enhance healing process, or reverse what was medically doomed and changeable. I still believe we can help certain changes. If the kid is not special aid kid, still need to practice concentration, focus, grade, school grade, he become better in the school, express their anger and frustration if they come from an abusive family or dysfunctional family, whatever it is. If they find a good leadership in the Taekwondo school, they can improve. Same with the adult. When adults come to Taekwondo, it depends on their need. But everybody, the first 6 months, they physically improve, their physical condition improve, their mental condition improve, their spirituality is least things can be improved, because a lot of adults are committed to their spiritual churches and needs. And I find it is inappropriate for a Taekwondo school to say, we teach Taekwondo for the Christ, or we teach Taekwondo for by the name of a prophet, or what is, because then you alienated the art and you make it more a sect than to do that. So the spirituality of Taekwondo, it's only presented through the tenets of Taekwondo. The tenets of courtesy, integrity, perseverance, and so forth. That person from the first month to the 6th month, he and she must be able, with a good leadership, to achieve good physical conditioning, losing some weight, more focus, more patience, and part of the tenets of Taekwondo. And as they progress in the training, their improvement will get more and more and more.